Hello out there, my friends. It is I, Hondo Onaka. Now you know what to do. You must tune in to my favorite podcast, the Fiveish Fangirls. Otherwise, there could be consequences.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 405 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. And if you're thinking about using the Force to get some cookies, you might want to think twice because Trooper Mom, she's watching you. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like we do with the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We've got a very special and exciting episode this week. So we've got a very special guest. If you've been on the TikToks, as the kids say these days, at all, and you are a fan of Star Wars or Marvel or cosplay, you may have seen our guest in your feeds. I'm sure that's how I found her. But she is I think making quite the name for herself. Especially with her series with Grogu as her Trooper Mom character. So we're going to be talking a lot of Star Wars, I am sure. So welcome, Jen Markham.
I'm honored to be here. Everyone, Rachel, Brittany, Holly, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. It's always exciting to find another fellow female nerd who is completely and unashamedly just like, this is the stuff I like, and I'm going to put it out there on the internet for everybody to see, and I don't care. Because that's very much the thing that is the impetus and what keeps us going with this podcast is, it's like we are all fully grown adults, so we all have daytime jobs. Some of us have kids, some of us don't, and but we're not letting the fact that we like really geeky things stop us from sharing it with the rest of the world.
Well, and it's not what it used to be, right? Like being a nerd is cool now. I mean, the biggest stars in the world go to San Diego Comic-Con. It's not I don't know, or I don't the nerds before us really blazed the trails.
The ones
yes,
that
they
faded
did.
away.
No.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
my husband, I don't know what he was doing. I think he happened to see like a blip of the an ad for the new Magic Mike trailer, and that made him think about a skit that Conan O'Brien did when Magic Mike XL, I think, which is the second one I think came out, and it I'm gonna butcher his last name again. Joe, whatever his last name. What's his face?
Mangello or something like that.
Oh yeah,
I was explaining
an I and a G.
Yeah, and Chauncey was laughing because Conan goes to the movie with a bunch of his women's staff, so he's the only guy in the theater full of women. But the skit ends with him going home and getting into bed, and Joe is in his bed. But I was explaining to Chauncey, like, he's kind of made a name for himself as this buff, chiseled guy, but he loves D&D. And like, he's been at Gen Con when I have been there. So it's like you just never know who is a big nerd and is really into what would be considered nerdy things. So if we can have one of the guys from Magic Mike in our corner, then I think we're gold.
Well, and then I just saw recently one of the NFL football players is a D&D guy, and most of his tweets are all about him doing D&D and even running a few D&D sessions for his fellow players. I'm just like, yay, this is awesome.
And there is definitely some overlap there too. I mean, we kind of joke about like, yay, sports ball. Like Chrissy, who's unfortunately not here because she had children related things to do. Chrissy's kind of our sports person, and I know you, Jen, are a big football fan, Bills fan. So, and unfortunately, the Bills fell short of making it to the Super Bowl.
No.
So that suit you made is going to have to wait.
Yes.
And that was the point. I was gonna wait it. I was gonna kind of put in the closet for next year, but I'm like, no, I really want to show it off. So
yeah, that turned out really, really cool.
Thank you.
I mean, you've made some really unique items, especially with the stuff to wear the Bills games, where you're like, I'm just gonna make this out of a shower curtain or bed sheets or whatever. So are you self-taught as far as sewing is concerned?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's so nice of you to say. No, I'm not self-taught. I took a 1-week class. I am fortunate enough to live in New York City, where there's the garment district and a couple of universities, FIT, Parsons. So there's a lot of sewing learning happening, and there was a private studio that was giving where you could take lessons and then you could use their machines, and they've very sadly since closed. I think I have heard of another one opening, but that was available to me, and I did take a 1-week class. I know that's not available everywhere, unfortunately, but that 1 week really kind of taught me enough fundamentals that I could kind of figure out the rest through YouTube, or mostly trial and error,
Yeah.
So
a lot of trial and error.
and that's true of everything, I mean, whether then it's painting, or it's 3D printing, or doing foam armor, or doing leather work. Like, well, let's watch a video, let's ask somebody, and let's start trying stuff, and as long as the initial investment in tools wasn't so great. And I'd say the biggest, most expensive tools were the sewing machine, which after I took a class, I felt, good enough to get one. And then a 3D printer, which I was to the point where I was buying so many prints that I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've already bought three 3D printers. With that money, I could have just bought my own and just started doing it myself. So, otherwise it's just fun. It's just fun to try things. And then you fail and you try again. And then maybe you have a costume in the end.
Yeah. Well, based on your videos, you've got lots of costumes, several closets worth.
There's one closet, but it's big.
Yeah, I love how you have your costumes. You've made them their own people.
For those who haven't, I'm sure people haven't seen it. I did a skit where the costumes talk to each other, and basically it's an argument like who gets to be worn more. And it sounds so inside baseball to me, like this is stuff that only goes on in my brain and maybe in my house. And I don't know.
No, as a fellow cosplayer, I totally get that. I have some that have not seen the light of day in ages, for one reason or another. And I finally pull it out and I'm like, oh, I hope this still fits. So no, you're not alone as far as the costumes are concerned, or even just the geeky clothing, like the little skit you made packing for Disney. Like what shirts am I gonna take to Disney? Right. Yeah, what shirt do you wear? Because it's like, well, I've got classic Disney characters. I've also got Star Wars, because like Disney owns everything now. So it's like all of my shirts technically would be appropriate. I mean, TikTok's not been around for too long, at least as far as we know it. Obviously, I think people that know the history that TikTok used to be just like a music type
musically app. Right?
Yeah, musically, and then that went under and it kind of evolved into the platform we know now. But I mean, as far as your history is concerned, I'm assuming that you've been making costumes and doing nerdy type things longer than TikTok has been around.
Yeah. origin story time, I guess. We'll make it
Yay!
short.
Everybody loves an origin story.
I've
Yes.
always loved costumes, always. I just, even I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life, but I also kind of moved around a lot after college and so forth, and didn't have a lot of stuff because I was moving. Every year I moved, and so, but the one like piece of Star Wars stuff I always had were those 2 thick costume books. Like I've always had those forever. Just love costumes. Anyway, and so I don't know. It was the Force, and then the Force Awakens came out, and so I was busy doing like adult life stuff. And the Force Awakens came out, and I'm like, everyone was excited about Star Wars again. I'm like, yeah, I've missed Star Wars, since the prequels and everything. And 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 then I taught myself to sew. I mean, a few years before that, I had taught, sorry, I just skipped over that part. I had learned to sew, but I was just kind of making things for friends' kids, or I made Halloween costumes, once a year for myself and my husband. So then that year after the Force Awakens, I'm like, well, I want to be Rey, and we'll do like Disney heroes, be like Rey and like Russell from Up. So I started researching Rey and like what kind of fabrics or whatever. And I stumbled across the rpf.com, which is the Replica prop forum. And it's this whole community of prop builders and costume builders who look into making things really accurately to how it was in the movie. Now, that is not the only way to make a costume. You can make it however you want. But I had no idea that there are people out there, like you could buy the exact boots that she had on her feet. Like you can still buy those. Or this, like I was hooked immediately. There's something about that puzzle solving, the research. I just found it so fascinating. And so I made my little Halloween costume, and then I've completely remade it to make it more, accurate as I learn more about things. And I just got just really hooked, and I made all the Reys, and then Rogue One came out, and I made Jyn Erso, and I kind of haven't stopped. I just find it really interesting. And that's maybe something with Star Wars. I've since, gotten into Marvel a little bit too. Those costumes I don't mind buying, because some of them are complex enough in a way that I don't find I would enjoy it as much. Whereas I do enjoy the leather work and the 3D armor, maybe some of the Star Wars stuff. I'm not quite sure why. I am building Jane Foster, so I'm doing that one, my first Marvel that I've built. But I think with TikTok too, that's where I was kind of, before TikTok, I was in a more narrow group of, not narrow, but like Star Wars costumers who all kind of costumed one way. So then the pandemic hit, and then we're all at home, and a lot of people would join TikTok. And I don't know, I just thought it was fun and just made goofy videos in my costumes. And then I had a friend say to me, like, Jen, you're a good writer. Why don't you write something instead of lip syncing something? And I did, and it did kind of well. And then the Trooper Mom thing, and
then Grogu came into your life.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I got really lucky. I really did. There's a lot of people who make really good videos, really funny videos that don't get seen. And I had a couple things hit, and I had a really good, I had good luck, at kind of a good time. So I don't know. Did I cover everything? It's that's kind of how it all sort of started. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to you, ladies. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all kind of, regardless of where we were in like the Star Wars, specifically the Star Wars fandom, because like my husband, he's a huge Star Wars fan. Holly is like our Star Wars expert. It took the Force Awakens forward for me to like really recognize the Star Wars universe for what it was. But there's something about the Mandalorian when it hits Disney Plus, and we all thought Mando was the coolest thing, and then they introduced us to Grogu, and it's like this floodgate opened up.
Yeah.
And now as we're recording this, Pedro Pascal just hosted Saturday Night Live over the weekend. So, which unfortunately there were no Star Wars related skits, which I totally agree with your TikTok. Like, there's no Mandalorian references except in his opening monologue. Although he did do really, really well. He's
he did great.
Really
That's
funny.
People are like kind of not angry, but coming at me. But like, I thought it was great. I laughed. Yeah. I laughed way more than I thought I was going to. Quite frankly, I thought it was a good episode. I just was hoping for Star Wars. That's it.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is interesting. So it's hard to remember, but Rise of Skywalker wasn't out yet. It was November 2019, right? So because that episode where Grogu heals the snake, no, where something about healing happened so it happened around the same time as the movie was released when Rey heals the snake.
Right. Yeah.
Force healing before. So didn't they, am I remembering that right? That they double episoded a week or something. So those could, anyway, the point is that
I think
like
you're
that,
right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
it was people, not everyone, but some fans have worked so hard to put the sequels in the rearview mirror. And the Rise of Skywalker was a disappointment for other fans, and sometimes the same ones, and then the Mandalorian came like at the same time. And that first season, from especially the way like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni told, like no one was paying attention to what they were doing. Not no one, but there was so much focus on the movies, because Carrie, we had to figure that out, the third movie, and we delayed it. And meanwhile, the Mandalorian's like, let's just make some fun Western Star Wars. It's not like go crazy. Let's just do our stuff. I mean, it was hundreds of millions of dollars, but it was still like, and it kind of worked, yeah, I can see why it's so popular. And the Grogu thing just completely hit whatever it meant to do. I think it hit way beyond what they expected, I is my guess.
And for them to keep Grogu under wraps for as long as they were able to, holy cow.
Right. And they struggled with merchandising afterwards because they wanted to keep it a secret. So there was nothing. There was no one knew about this. No one had a design at some factory somewhere to make t-shirts. Nobody. So to ramp that up took a second. And that's what all the merchandise was really delayed. And the Etsy sellers were doing great stuff. And then their designs were stolen. And I'm rambling, but it's really interesting. People ask me, so what do you think is going to happen in season 3? Like, there you go, right?
Yep. I got my Grogu.
Is Grogu gonna die? Like, there's no way we're getting rid of Grogu. No way. There's
no.
Under no.
I'm pretty sure the universe would collapse.
Yeah. Like, right. Even if, let's say, in some 5-year plan, that was the plan, it's not now. There's no way.
No.
What else are they going to do?
Yeah.
There's no movies coming out. This is it. This is the story.
I mean, with Star Wars, it is this TV series, the Disney Plus is what we've got.
Yep.
Between the Mandalorian and the animated stuff, the Bad Batch and stuff like that. So my personal opinion is the movies, unless they can just come up with something extremely unique that could be justified doing in a movie format, just stick with the series, stick with the Disney Plus series, because I mean they seem to be hitting their stride with that. Although I know the Book of Boba Fett didn't necessarily go over that well with people, because it was the Book of Boba Fett for like the first half of the series, and then it turned into Mandalorian 2.5 2B. So,
not that I didn't mind that.
No. Well, and we talked about it when we talked about the season, Book of Boba Fett, that because Boba Fett's story is so intertwined with Mando's, so it almost has to, because it's like, what was Boba Fett doing up into the point where he and Mando's paths meet? And then, they're intrinsically connected because of their nature, even though Boba Fett never truly claimed himself to be a Mandalorian, he still wore the armor and did some of the same things that the other Mandalorians did. So, but yeah, I mean, again, as we're recording this, Mandalorian season 3 starts at the beginning of next month, and everybody's just all like, we're all just waiting, twiddling our fingers, going, yes, give me more of the Grogu, give me more of the all of the things. I mean, Grogu obviously is the somewhat of the comic relief also as well, for something that is kind of dark, with where they're going with Mando now having to reassert himself as a proper Mandalorian, since he did remove his helmet, and then everything with the dark saber and everything. So I'm excited to return to that universe. So
Oh yeah, and what you were talking about with the dark sabers, and also the helmet thing is only for his particular branch of the religion, and not all Mandalorians feel that way. But I think we're all coming towards Mandalore, as it seems, and even from the trailer show. So I think that's really going to be interesting to see, like how the different, and is Din Djarin's faith going to be challenged or reshaped, based on what he encounters or what he sees or who he talks to there. I mean, he's never been the Mandalore. He's like, that planet's cursed. I don't know, this maybe could reshape him. So that's what I'm excited to see. But
yeah, well, just to see what kind of state Mandalore is in, because after the purge, it's like, what happened to it,
right, exactly.
So yeah, it's like very exciting. So obviously the Star Wars Trooper Mom is kind of your ongoing series. You've started posting your stuff on YouTube as well, because unfortunately the clock app is not necessarily the nicest when it comes to getting videos in front of people's eyeballs. Plus there's a time limit too. So I'm sure having the freedom of being able to put longer videos up on YouTube is nice as well.
It's so interesting though, but it's a different format though, right? It's like TikTok is up and down, and the long format YouTube is horizontal.
Yeah.
But then there's YouTube Shorts, which allows you to do the up and down. And so far, just with the time between like making costumes and also making videos, I really haven't had time to do the long form. So the introduction of YouTube Shorts has been really cool for me. I've gotten pretty lucky there too. But it's just the platforms are so up, like crazy, man. I have friends with maybe similar numbers on TikTok, let's say, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and I can't grow on Instagram. And I'm a cosplayer. Like, I have pretty cosplay photos. It doesn't matter, but they can't get any traction on YouTube. And my YouTube, is doing really well. And but you know what I mean? And then on the TikTok, we're about the same. The three platforms are really, for video, are really interesting, and just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's,
I mean, as long as you're making content you're happy with, at the end of the day, I think that's all that really matters.
And I know that sounds like fortune cookie kind of like, just do your best. And that's the advice I give. And that's the advice I take when you're in a part where it's like, man, my videos, no one's watching, and you're like, and you're just not happy. But that's the absolute advice. You have to keep making videos. And if they make you happy, then who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it really does work. Sometimes you just have to get out of your own way mentally. I find, at least. So
yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So was like the whole Grogu Trooper Mom thing, was that just kind of a natural? Because I know you said somebody mentioned like, hey, you're a really good writer, you should write some stuff. Was that the idea that you came up with, or was that just a natural?
I did a couple other ones that were kind of not so great, but what I did was, in the final episode of the first season of The Mandalorian, right, Grogu's captured by these two scout troopers, and they're voiced by Jason Sudeikis and Adam Pally, hilarious guys. It was before Ted Lasso, one of them's Jason Sudeikis. Yeah. Anyway, and they're sitting there and they're having this total like dumb conversation just about Grogu and what they're supposed to do with him, and I loved it. Like, you never see like two basically stormtroopers talking about their lives as troopers and like what they're doing. I thought it was great. And so what I did was I took that scene, took out Adam Pally's dialogue, kept Jason Sudeikis's, and then replaced Adam with my voice. And then I shot new video. I acted two sides of one scout trooper. So the idea was, well, what if instead of punching Grogu, the lady scout trooper adopted him? And that's how it ends, with she walks off with him. And that was cute. It kind of did okay. It didn't do like huge big numbers, but that's where the idea came from, was that actual scene. Then the next video I did, I'm like, well, I'll do a sequel to that of the two of them. And that was my first million-view video. So it was from that scene was the inspiration. So from the actual show, because there are scout troopers in that first season of The Mandalorian, and the final episode.
Yeah. as like, because I know you've shown some of the how-to behind the scenes, how you shoot some of your videos. So again, kind of like with the cosplay, are you self-taught as far as like the video editing and all that, or is that?
Oh no, I did go to school actually for it. I do have a
Okay.
degree in journalism. So yeah, I worked in TV news for a long time. So
Okay.
it's not quite the same skills, but in terms of, I taught myself After Effects. I never knew how to do any of that stuff. I would say I felt like I've been professionally trained in video storytelling. I mean, that doesn't sound pretentious, but it's just you telling a story with video.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have a beginning, middle, and end, and it does a thing. Although I think in this day and age, I think we're all pretty much have the same. We all consume so much video that we all kind of know what it's supposed to look like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but because of I was still freelancing and stuff like that, I did have those tools on my laptop, like the Premiere Suite. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm always fascinated when I see really compelling and interesting content, especially on TikTok, what it is that people are doing to make that content. Because I know some people that make some really great content and they are able to do it just in their phone. It's shot in their phone, they edit it in their phone. And then you have some people like you, where obviously you're having to film and edit on a computer and then, put it together in a way that works on TikTok. So there's a lot more steps than just, filming yourself on your phone and like selfie mode going, hey, look at me, I'm doing something crazy.
But I think it's what
I always find it interesting how much work people are willing to do for something that is watched on mobile, if that makes sense.
Right, but everything's watched on mobile now, right? Which I didn't realize either. I watch something on a big TV. Everything, I don't watch anything on a phone or a computer. It's all on a big TV. But I think and I speak for anyone, all four of us here, are becoming the exception. A lot of people watch even television on this guy, which is crazy to me. But I only know what I know, But I hear what you say. I feel the same way. Every once in a while, I could do what I do. There are video tools sophisticated enough that I could do exactly what I do in the phone. I just am more comfortable with the tools that I knew before I started TikTok. Like I was saying, I used to edit video for news. So I had that stuff. I like having a mouse. I just like that precision with that's what I just personally prefer. I could do it on phone, but I don't do it on the phone enough to get really good at it. And I am the opposite. I am amazed when people do it on the phone. I think that personally, because I think that is so much harder. One time I did like a compilation. It was just some video like, if the Avengers were football fans, what would they be? And so I pulled in like, it wasn't even that complicated. Just, it was me in front of a green screen and then graphics of like the team name and the Avenger. But having to pull all that stuff because I wasn't that good at it, it took forever on the phone because I was doing it on a car ride. I'm like, how do people do this? I could be so much faster, but that's me. You know, they're both really valuable skills, especially in this day and age. I need to get better at the phone because the tools are there. I'm faster on the track.
Yeah, but sometimes the situation arises and you're like, oh, I don't have my computer. All I have is this little pocket thing,
Exactly.
This device that fits in my pocket. So because I tended to, I've gotten to the point where I film on my phone. I won't necessarily edit, although most of my TikToks don't have much in the way of editing anyway. I've attempted to do stuff where there's like cuts and different angles and stuff, and I'm like, this is so much work on this tiny device.
But that's the great thing about TikTok, though. Like, how many great TikToks have you seen, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just one person talking to camera without a single edit in there, and you're transfixed, and they tell a great story, and they tell it really entertainingly, and it has millions of views, and it's good. That's the kind of great thing about TikTok. That listen, I do what I do, and I do complicated skits and After Effects and blah, 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 and that's one kind of way to do video. But it's a much more democratic platform. Like literally anybody can do it with it has some sort of device and camera. It's kind of cool. Whereas on YouTube, I noticed right away, like my edits aren't perfect, especially when I was first starting. Like I was trying to figure out how to do things, and I wasn't that well taught with like doing visual effects. And then I since posted those old TikToks on YouTube, and people are like, "This, what is this? How come your green screen sucks?" You know, because audiences on YouTube they're not expecting what audiences on TikTok are. Like, we're just happy to hear people talk. I don't know. That's obviously just my experience. Like, I know what I know, but I always find that really interesting. That's kind of the beautiful thing about TikTok. It, like, anybody can make it, you know, make a video. And
so you mentioned that you've been a Star Wars fan for a long time, but obviously you've also got some MCU characters that you now have in your repertoire. So is the MCU is a newer fan of, although I say that we're coming up on the 15th anniversary of the first Iron Man movie later in a couple months. So like, oh, the MCU, it's so new. No, not anymore.
I remember seeing Iron Man in the theater. I'm not going to sit here and say I knew from the beginning. I knew from the first Iron Man. Like, listen, Marvel movies were not super. They were kind of all over the place, and then the Marvel Studios went bankrupt. There wasn't Marvel Studios. They were just licensing things to different studios. It didn't really come together for me until Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think a lot of people say the same thing. Once Guardians of the Galaxy came out, maybe because it reminded us a little bit of Star Wars, possibly. I don't know. The characters, the humor, I was like, oh, what are we doing here? And then it just got bigger from there. And then Infinity War and Endgame were just so cool, you know? I will say I'm an MCU fan. I have comic books. I don't know them nearly as well as I know the movies and stuff. And then the Disney Plus shows, and we've never had more Marvel stuff. It's kind of like this for Marvel fans, even during the pandemic. It's great.
I mean, again, as we're recording this, the red carpet for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is occurring tonight. So, we're all going to be able to go,
a week
watch
from Thursday,
next week. So it's pretty exciting. So, and we normally do a news segment, but we we'll sit on to most of our news until our next episode. But I did want to bring up the fact that Marvel has announced that Scott Lang's book, that was a blink and you miss reference in She-Hulk of all things, is actually been written and is available for pre-order now.
I think that's a riot. I love when they do stuff like that. You know, listen, I'm a big Star Wars fan, but Star Wars isn't funny. They don't have a sense of humor. They can't poke fun at themselves a lot. You know what I mean? And Marvel is like, I want to be first in line to poke fun at myself a little bit. You know what I mean? Whether it's She-Hulk or little just like under the breath things that Tony says, or Deadpool. Like, I love stuff like that. Like, they're not afraid to have fun. And obviously different strokes for different folks, but it hits a sweet spot in terms of like swashbuckling epic heroes and sort of fantasy tales of good versus evil, and fun and humor. I don't know. That's kind of
it's a little bit of, it's got a little bit of everything for everybody. Is a nice thing about it, and I think that's why so many people enjoy it even now, 15 years. 15 years after I Am Iron Man and Nick Fury comes out of the shadows going, I'd like to talk to you about the Adventure Initiative. So I
think what's happening now with some fans, it's obviously always there's fans that hook on to one thing and they can't evolve and change. And now, like, because it was just something that you said about how there's this little something for everybody that maybe 10 years ago there wasn't. It was very, these 5 bros and this one white woman are like, fighting aliens, and that's kind of it, you know what I mean? And now it's a lot of different things, a lot of different people that look a lot of different ways all over the world, and I think that's great. It's different than when it was 10 years ago, and some people with very narrow minds sometimes can't be broadened, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're onto something, and I think that's probably why Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of where that pivot came from, because up until then, pretty much everything had been Earth-based. And then we get that nice little post-credit, you know, in the first Avengers with the introduction of Thanos, and you know, that obviously opened a very big door. But once we got off of planet Earth, that immediately gives us literally an entire universe, and now the multiverse, where we are meeting all sorts of people who, you know, are, you know, they look human but they're not. You know, you got green people, you got blue people, you got talking trees, you know, and then we get, now that we're doing the whole multiverse thing, even just characters that we've come to know and love, getting versions of them that are extremely different, you know, like the you know, kind of the dead you know, zombie Doctor Strange, you know, with the cloak made out of bodies, you know, essentially. So you know, the zombie episode of What If, I think, was for a lot of people very, you know, probably one of their favorites, because it was so different. It's like, how many times are people going to be like, you know, I like Captain America, but I really love zombie Captain America, you know? Plus, you know, again, as cosplayers, it gives us way more opportunity to try
so many
and
options,
do different
right?
things. So,
and I like that even though it's becoming so big, they're still telling small stories too. Like She-Hulk is a small story. Hawkeye is a little small story, you know? For the most part, WandaVision's a little bit of a small story about a small place. They're still doing that too. I think it's really, really well handled, even though I know people aren't. I'm I don't know. I like that it's a little bit of everything for everybody. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What were you about to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I have referenced your video when you made the design for your Gamora to be able to do the hands, so without having to paint yourself. For somebody who'd mentioned that. So,
and you can buy gloves, which I didn't even know. People were telling me in the comments, but yeah, just this. Some people are great at body paint. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
We aren't. I don't know, but I'm not.
I've never done it.
It's
no
scary.
I'm way too intimidated to do something with body paint. So I'm like, no, I will do. I will do characters that look like my skin color, or I'll just be like, whatever.
And I don't want to speak for you, but also I find is like when you really love a character, you want to make it look great the best you can. People always ask me, are you ever going to do Ahsoka? I'm like, I'm not going to be able to paint that face of my face to look that good. And I don't want to be like a weird runny Ahsoka. Like, I don't think that's cool for her. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think it's not a strength of mine. So it's not a caution for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm presuming that you'll be off to the theaters to go see Ant-Man and the Wasp when it comes released.
Oh yeah, I've kind of stopped getting tickets in advance. Not that there's sort of no need, but I don't know, I'm like a little what night is best kind of thing. Let's just go see it, sort of you know. Yeah. But yeah, I'll definitely see it opening weekend for sure.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, especially if you're like all of us are kind of in the community and you're making content and you're watching things. Like people are just, there's no buffer anymore. Like it'd be easy 2 weeks, easy. People will post tonight. There'll be people we're there that will post tonight.
I try to do my best, like, because nowadays the general release seems to be some sort of teaser trailer and then like a more official trailer, although teaser trailers these days are still like 2-3 minutes long when teasers used to be like 30 seconds. So, you know, we'll get like that first teaser and then several months later we'll get like, you know, an official trailer. And Anything that comes after that official trailer, I try to avoid like the plague. TV spots, whatever, I'm thankfully I don't watch a lot of regular TV, so I don't have to worry about commercials. Although this past week I was out of town, so I was in a hotel and we didn't have internet, so watching TV was our only option. And there were a couple times where Quantum Mania commercial came on. I'm like, no, I don't want to. But yeah, the buffer for spoilers is essentially gone these days, and
and people are like relishing in it too. They can't wait. And then I think the worst is people not only posting content but then commenting on your content. So it's gonna like pop up in your face. And then the more you protest, the more people think, oh, let's get it's so childish. So
we've done what, at least one, if not two episodes just dedicated to spoiler and spoiler culture.
What's the worst thing
how annoying
you've ever had spoiled for you?
Oh goodness,
I'll think too, because I don't know if I have an answer. Obviously spoilers for anybody. I'm sure we're going to talk about something that's not recent.
I mean, I've been very, very fortunate that by the time I got into the MCU and Star Wars, that I got in late. So honestly, I think the worst thing I've ever been spoiled on was what, a couple of years ago now, where Doctor Who spoiled John Barrowman's return.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably the worst.
Because
I'm very fortunate now that things like the movies, I can usually get to them within like the first 24 hours of them being released, and I just stay off my phone and off of the places where I'm most likely to get spoiled.
Right.
But with TV and something like Doctor Who, where it airs hours before us here in the United States, because it airs in England first, and it got out because the episode had aired across the pond first before it aired for us in the US, and that was like the official. And even John Barrowman himself was like posting things on Twitter, and I'm like, John, you're American. You're partially American. We've not seen it on this continent yet. So
some of us don't have VPN access like you do.
Yeah. So that's probably the worst thing that I've been spoiled on. So
TV's tough. I know it wasn't me, but I had a friend who was in New York on the subway to see Force Awakens, and the people next to them had seen it and were talking about it, how Han Solo had died, and that's how she found out. And I'm like, oh, that's brutal. But I think
that's how Chrissy got spoiled, but she didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're joking, and then it's like they weren't.
Yeah.
TV can be tough though, especially if you find stuff late. Like the one that's popped to mind, I don't think this is a great example, but I watched the reboot of Battlestar Galactica that was on Sci-Fi. Loved it, but didn't find it until way later, like while the 4th season was on the air, and then there was that 2 years before the 5th season because of the writer's strike, whatever, blah blah blah. So I started watching it, and I was loving it so much, like a moron. I started Googling because I wanted to read more about the show, and I felt like one of the first results was telling me who all the Cylons were. I'm like, oh, wow, all right. I still really enjoyed the show, but I was like, don't be an idiot with a show that's already been on the air,
Yeah.
So
that's been I've done that before. Like I just watch a show that's been on and I'm just binging it, and I decide to Google something and I get spoiled about like someone's death. I'm like, seriously?
Right. And it's like, you know better. You're like, don't Google anything.
Exactly.
But you're just excited about the show and you wanted to learn about it or who that actor was or something, and you can't, and you forget every time. So I try to be like, TV is tricky.
And I love reading fan fiction, and like there's times like I'm reading fan fiction and it's spoiled me, like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, and especially when they forget to put in the author's notes, this covers X, Y, and Z for these seasons.
Yes.
If you haven't seen them, please skip fic until you have
Yeah,
watched.
really. Yeah. At least with, at least with,
I'm gonna guess though, because I remember the premiere for Doctor Strange was very close to the actual release date for the movie, and there was something where it had been announced that was the case because there was stuff in it that they didn't want spoiled. So I'm hoping that because there is a full 2 weeks in between, right? Because it's not until the 17th. Ant-Man, what's today? The 7th? So like 10 days.
It's
like
6,
yeah.
so yeah.
It's basically 2 weeks. Like
10-ish
this
days.
week and then the end of next week. So I'm hoping that means nothing too spoilery in the movie.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
That's what I hope. Nothing
we
that
can only
people coming out of the Dolby Theater tonight could be like,
really.
and texting and letting you know right away. That's
or they'll let something leak so that people will focus on that,
right?
So that they don't leak something else. Because like the whole, speaking of Doctor Strange, because I've never seen this confirmed by anybody, but I would, bet a cookie, maybe 2 cookies, that they let the Patrick Stewart leak on purpose to hide John Krasinski as Reed Richards.
Well, Patrick Stewart's in the trailer.
Yeah, but it's like it's kind of a like real subtle. And people were, and even Patrick Stewart was like, no, I'm not going to, I can neither confirm or deny. And then they finally did confirm that he's in it. And I think they let them do that.
Like, dude, it's you. That's you. And he's like, nope. I'm like, dude, that's you. And then he's like, oh yeah. Oh, they just told me I can tell you it's me. Like, what a mess.
Yeah.
If you're cutting the trailer, you gotta let the actor know.
They just need to do like what Ryan Reynolds is doing for Deadpool 3, and it's like the movie's like a year or 2 away, but hey, look, Hugh Jackman's going to be in it as Wolverine. No spoilers here,
right? I just think that's gonna be like a buddy movie,
Oh my god, it's gonna be so good. I'm excited for Deadpool to be properly in the MCU. So like She-Hulk was fun, but to have that fourth, a character that does the fourth wall breaks, and it can be very meta and stuff, but just throwing Deadpool into the MCU, it's going to be so much fun.
Oh, yes.
It'll be interesting to see how they're going to keep it PG-13. Have they said, are they going to keep it? Are they going to let the
No, it's going to be R. At least the Deadpool movies will be R. Now, when he appears elsewhere, obviously, they'll need to be more careful. But they've said that Deadpool is supposed to remain rated R. So, I mean, those of us that obviously. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're getting new generations, as new generations are born that will be introduced to the MCU, but it's like, I'm older and wiser and maybe not as mature as I should be when the MCU started, but, I can handle a rated R MCU.
Right, there's just I think the main thrust, and I don't really know, is the box office implications. Like, you will make less money if your movie is not rated PG-13. That's just math. That's just how that all works.
I think the first 2 Deadpool movies have proven that that's not necessarily the case, but I think he's an exception more than the rule.
Yeah, right, but they didn't make like record-breaking amounts of money. Yeah, I'm just saying, when you look at Marvel movies that are not that list of like that, it's just not that.
It's not gonna be like Black Panther $1 billion.
A slice of cash off the movie you make. It's just how big a slice. But you're absolutely right to the point that Deadpool was successful and surprised a lot of people. Like, this is the first R-rated movie to do X, Y, Z, and A, B, and 9. So it's interesting that, and I respect that Disney's like, that's part of its success. It's part of its allure, is that it's this more grown up, more irreverent, more I don't know what I'm about to see kind of thing. So I hadn't kind of like you, I don't want to know too much about the movie, so I hadn't looked into it so deeply. So I actually hadn't heard that it was still going to be rated R, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. So, so I mean, you mentioned that you're working on Jane as a costume, so Lady Thor, I'm presuming.
Yeah, I started her over the summer actually. Whoops, because most of the Marvel costumes are just maybe heavier or harder to wear in the summertime. This one doesn't have sleeves, so I'm like, boom, let's go. I bought a foam armor kit. Another cosplayer had designed the pattern and laser cut it out of foam, which was just a great relaxing project. I just had to paint it and glue it and just kind of like sit at my dining room table and just like chill, you know, have an easy project for once.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting a couple of other projects to do, like some things and some work that just kind of took me away from it at the end of last year. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't made a costume in a second, you know, but I hate having things not done. So I'm trying to wrap that up so then I can pick something new to start. So, yeah.
You would hate coming over here and seeing my work piles.
Yeah, but everybody works differently. It's okay. And listen, a costume is like a long build, right? Sometimes the person you were when you start a costume is not the person you are at a certain amount of time when you're through it. And I think it's normal to maybe like, you know, put it aside or turn to something else or not finish it. Like, who cares? It's it's your costume. You can do with it however you choose, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. So, so are you, you know, besides the costumes, obviously you're going to be making more content, you know, with the new season of Mandalorian is going to offer you more, at the very least, sound clips to use. I love that it's like you Trooper Robert Grogu are, you know, your script, and then Mando is you just pull clips from the TV show.
And people ask me all the time, so is that hard? Do you ever run out? And I actually was writing one today, and it's not that hard. It's not easy. It takes a while, but I've seen the show enough that I pretty much know at least what he's doing. If I can't remember exactly what he's saying, or sometimes I think he's saying one thing and I get to the actual clip and it's not quite what I had in mind, but I just write around it. And it also is why Grogu talks on my videos. He didn't used to when it was just him and the Scouter. Oh my gosh, if you've never seen my videos, it's gonna be so boring. But when they were, he just babbles like he babbles on the show. And then I wrote Mando, and I'm like, okay, so Mando is clips from the show. I can't write that. Grogu doesn't speak, so she's the only one I can write for. That's too big of an obstacle. So I'm like, so now I write for him. So it's not, she doesn't carry the entire narrative of the little video. So, but it's fun. And you'd be surprised. I think because I do have it, obviously for editing purposes, I have them all cut out. I think there's 18 minutes of him speaking in the first season. I think there's another 14, or maybe have verse 14 the first season, 18 minutes in the second season, and then about 6 minutes total in Book of Boba Fett. So what's funny too is when he says, I can bring you in warm, I can bring you in cold in Book of Boba Fett, my ear knew immediately they just cut the thing from the first episode of the first season. It sounded exactly, it is exactly, it's like, that's her. I listened to it so many times. But I haven't run out of ideas. I still have ideas for things like, you know, I do reuse the same clips again, but in different contexts. No one has ever really called me on it. It's fun. It's a fun challenge. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's fun with all the different how you've managed to make, you know, what limited dialogue you have for Mando work, especially with some of your skit ideas, you know, like you know, putting together a tent to go camping or teaching Grogu about football, you know.
Yes.
But it works for his character too, right? Yes. I mean, even would you be surprised to learn? And so the first season's is 8 episodes. Let's call them an hour each or whatever. So in 8 hours of television, he only speaks for 14 minutes. He's not a very verbose character. So it works. If he only has 3 or 4 lines in my video, no one notices. Why isn't he talking? He doesn't talk. That's Mando, you know, he's as a guy of few words. And actually the episode that has the most dialogue is the one in episode 2. And in season 2, I keep doing that. In season 2, where they go to the snow planet with the spider, because it's like I was just talking about, he's the only one of the 3 of them that talks. Frog Lady doesn't talk and Grogu doesn't talk. So they're on this planet and it's just him. So he's driving the narrative of the story. He's the only one speaking. And I'm like, oh, this is great. There's so much to use there. Whereas in an episode where he connects again with Cara Dune and Greef Karga to go do the little mission on the planet, those 2 are talking and he's not saying anything, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, in fact, that makes perfect sense. But Mando is very, when he does talk, he is very business. So
Right.
the type
and
of
few
dialogue
words.
that you have is very like, he doesn't be very serious, and he's all about the mission and the job or the whatever. He's not just yakking away talking about cookies or something.
Right. Yeah, it's short things like, and if you start to notice how many times he says, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
He says a lot. He says more than this is the way. It's very funny.
That just makes him a perfect dad.
It cracked me up. He just said it in The Last of Us. I don't know if it was the episode that aired yesterday or the one before, but he said, I don't have time for this. I'm like, Mando, why are you saying this isn't that show? It was so funny. But
I think I need to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
This is The Last of Us.
I mean, the people that have, it's been funny to watch with the Last of Us started, that there may not be a lot of crossover there with people that watch that have also watched things like The Mandalorian. So maybe this is like their real introduction to Pedro Pascal. But I've seen like some articles that are like, oh yeah, people it's like, oh, you just now figure out who Pedro Pascal was. Let's remind everyone he was on Game of Thrones,
right.
He had his eyeballs gouged out by the mountain. So it's like, some of us know who Pedro Pascal is and has been for a while, but it is kind of interesting to see the two fandoms, like Star Wars people have been like, yeah, we've had him for a while. You don't see his face much, but he's there. And then The Last of Us people are like, oh my God. And then of course again, they don't really reference it on SNL, but the one skit where he's like the high school teacher, middle school teacher, and the kids are making like thirst trap videos for social media about how hot he is. So like he's been around for a while.
He's been around. He's in Wonder Woman
one of those
84. He's been in a lot of things that it's had a lot of eyes on them. But but the Last of Us is really really kind of taken off in a way that I think people haven't. It's rare, I think, for a show to gain viewers it's not unheard of, like that, but it's getting more viewers every week, which is I think the mountaintop for any show's success. It's kind of exciting. It's exciting again. It has that WandaVision feel. Remember that show that I felt like during the pandemic we were all talking about it. We were all watching it. We all couldn't wait to see what happened. I'm getting that sense with this show. It's a show that everybody's talking about, and that's just really fun.
Yeah. Yep, it is. So that's all I really had for you. So Brittany, Holly, you have
what are you excited
about?
All I've been talking about is my stuff. Like, what are you guys excited about to see The Mandalorian? I was talking about seeing like Faith and having it clarified, but what about you guys?
I mean, I'm excited to see what happens with like the Darksaber and Bo-Katan and all of that. Yeah. So to see these characters transition from the cartoons into live action has been a lot of fun. To see characters like Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano now in live action. It was really wild because I was at GalaxyCon in Columbus, Ohio in December, and both Ashley Eckstein and Rosario Dawson were there, so we had both Ahsoka Tano's at the same convention.
Nice.
Wow. So it was really cool. And I was waiting in line to meet Rosario, and she was telling the person that she was signing an autograph for, because they were yakking, and she was talking about how obviously she's done Ahsoka on Mando and Book of Boba Fett
is coming
too.
Yeah.
Oh,
and she's in Book of Boba Fett, one episode.
Yeah. But now she's been she started to do the Ahsoka series, and she was in the what do they call it, the space with the screens. I forget what the The volume, yeah.
Yeah.
She was in the volume, and she was all done up as Ahsoka. She had the lightsabers in her hands, and she got into place, and the director or whatever was like, "And action," and she's like, "I froze," because I was standing here looking at the volume that had whatever location they were in the Star Wars universe, and she's like, "Holy shit, I'm in Star Wars."
That's a great story.
It was really wild. So, but it was cool to have both Ahsoka's at the same event, and they got to meet, which was really cute. So Ashley Eckstein's got some photos on her social media. You can see she's like, "Oh, look, it's Ahsoka's, two Ahsokas together."
Was it real recently, GalaxyCon? Was it this?
That
was
was first weekend of December.
Oh, okay. So still fairly recently. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really
cool. Do you
cool.
think they'll connect the Ahsoka show to this season of The Mandalorian anyway? I guess I would
imagine so.
Because that's next.
Yeah. I would assume that that's the case.
I guess it depends on what Ahsoka story they're telling. Are they telling it before? Is it some sort of Mandalorian prequel, or is it happening at? Have they said where in time it takes place? I guess I was assuming it was sort of concurrent because we've met Rosario in this story that 5 years post Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
but
I would assume so, because of where just everything takes place in the greater timeline, where we're not that far removed from the events of the OG trilogy,
right?
So this is an her Ahsoka is a little older, a little wiser, because obviously Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka is eventually one of the survivors of Order 66.
Right.
And we kind of don't really know what happens to her. We've gotten a bit more with some of the stuff we've gotten with some of the other cartoons outside of Rebels, but yeah, because of where this takes place, I would assume it's like, where is Ahsoka now, all these years after everything that happened with the Jedi and everything, because the Jedi are no more. So it's like, how does someone who was trained as a Jedi, when the Order is no longer around, what do you do with your life?
Which is why maybe it could be an immediate post Order 66 story. I don't think it is. I didn't get that sense, but I don't think they've said.
I think it's like from what's like kind of been hinted a little bit that I've seen. I think it's gonna take place either like around the same time or maybe a little bit after what's going on in The Mandalorian.
That makes sense, because people are gonna get confused if you start jumping around, right?
Yeah. And also I remember.
Well, I was gonna say, because the latest trailer for Mando is, it looks like at the very least we're gonna get a little more of Grogu's memories from Order 66.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I don't know, because they've been very tight-lipped about the Ahsoka series for the most part. So.
From what I did on a Google search, take it with a grain of salt. They said that it's supposed to take place in the same time frame as The Mandalorian and its other interconnected spin-offs after the events of Return of the Jedi. So,
great. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get another scene with Luke trying to recruit Ahsoka to try to help him run the academy. Fish out of water. Hey, I don't know what to do with train these guys. I need help.
Yeah.
I've seen, these are rumors, but I've seen rumors about getting casting for some live action versions of characters from Rebels.
Ooh. Yes, we are supposed to get some of the other Rebels characters in live action version. So, which off the top of my head, I can't remember which ones.
and I'm pretty. So I remember when we first saw Ahsoka in Mandalorian season 2, she was asking that one guy like, if where's Thrawn, that baddie at end of Rebels. But I think he's gonna show up.
Yeah. I think we're supposed to get.
I mean, she was at Celebration. I thought this was announced who was in it, but
I think we're supposed. I think they said we're supposed to get Ezra. I think.
Ooh,
live
I
action
think so.
version.
That would be
I remember.
awesome.
So
I remember seeing like fan.
I'm excited.
casting.
If they could do that, we need live action Chopper too. So
Oh yeah.
we need more sassy droids.
wait a minute. This was all at Celebration, you guys. Like this has all been announced, right? Like I was
think
in the
so.
middle.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is like they'll announce stuff, and then sometimes stuff they'll cancel it
Totally
because
fair. You've been
like
saying that. Yes, that's true. That's true.
What you dig? It's the X-wing pilot series that what's her face was gonna do. I think has gotten.
How many trilogies we had announced?
Pot
Like
on
9?
the.
None of them happening. None of them.
Yeah.
Right.
But the
So
Ahsoka
it's like-
show is done shooting. Like they're done.
Yeah, that one's actually been produced. So, and I can't imagine that they're gonna pull a DC and take something that's completely finished and stick it away in a hole somewhere. So.
Yeah. The rumor has it that they might make a deal with like Roku or something, because I know supposedly some of the stuff that got pulled off of HBO Max for their show cancellations are supposed to get moved over there, and then like the last couple episodes of the Nevers that hadn't aired are supposedly supposed to air there. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. But this day and age, is like I'll believe it when it's actually playing in front of my face.
Exactly. Yes.
This is the way things are going. So,
Mhm.
although thankfully with the Marvel and Star Wars stuff, that if something doesn't happen, it just never happens, and it's not like they actually produce something and we never see it.
Marvel's been pretty good.
part.
Star Wars, though, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the plan is. Like,
I don't know if they know what the plan is.
that I
Yeah.
completely agree. I completely agree. I wish they were less. It feels like they're afraid to take risks and fail sometimes. The way Marvel just like, I'll make whatever. We'll make a She-Hulk show and it won't have an ending and it'll still be funny. Like they'll just make stuff and just try things.
Yeah.
And
Talking Tree, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And Star Wars doesn't have that fearlessness, and they're a little beholden to the original lore. I'm not saying the original trilogy, but the original lore, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we got Andor, which was unbelievable. So they tried that.
Yes.
It's a great thing, so that gives me hope, but then they're not going to make more than a second season. You know what I mean? Like, what did we learn? Nothing. That was great, but it wasn't for kids. You can't sell Andor toys. Like, you still got to make a little Star Wars too. I don't know.
Yeah.
That it all just makes me just a little bit, I don't say nervous, concerned. I like after Ahsoka is at Andor season 2 and that just started shooting, like, whereas we're going to get 5 Marvel things this year, we get like one Star Wars thing. I'm rooting for Star Wars. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it's such a, like Marvel, there's so much material that they could potentially use.
It's true.
When they made when Disney announced these purchases, some people were like, what, how's that gonna work? And I'm over here like, I'm a huge Disney fan. I go to the parks on a semi-regular basis before the pandemic, and I know that Disney's thing above all else is storytelling, and it's very rich storytelling and giving things a lot of depth and substance that, yeah, you may get a mention of something and it may not be referenced again for years, but
Right.
eventually it's going to come back around more than
Right.
likely. It's like, we got a quick glimpse of Thanos in 2012, and he popped up a little bit every now and then after that, but he didn't become the big bad until 2018.
Yeah.
Right.
It took 6 years for Thanos to be like, okay, I got my gauntlet, let's get these gems, snap. So
well, yeah. And with Star Wars, the expanded universe for books, them pulling Grand Admiral Thrawn in to the cartoons, and that was something I was happy to see and kind of not expecting, but it was just like, okay, maybe we can pull some of the better expanded universe ideas and maybe update them and give them a tweak.
I mean, I don't know why they can't. I mean, I could see maybe someone making the argument that, a lot of the EU stuff isn't, I don't want to say canon, but the people that know the history know that George Lucas was kind of like, oh, you want to write a book? Sure.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
It didn't have
there wasn't a lot, the
Right,
quality
yeah.
control wasn't necessarily tip top, but that doesn't mean that just because somebody's book like completely contradicts something else doesn't mean that they can't pull like a character name and something. I mean, the comics do that all the time where somebody will get killed off, and then like a couple of years later somebody will come along and write a new series of books and they'll figure out a way to bring that character back.
Yeah. I mean, in the Legends, there was okay, yeah, there were a few clunkers, but there were some pretty decent story ideas that, hey, even some of the clunkers with a bit of fine tuning, hey, got some prime options for ideas.
I like when they do original stuff too. Like a Mandalorian was a completely original character they wrote for the screen, and it was really cool. I love the EU. I have all kinds of books, and I can still love them, just even if they're not part of the storyline. It's totally fine. So they don't have to do that, but they don't have to. They don't have the rich library that Marvel has, but in a way that also means you can do anything. You can do anything. Tell a great story. I wish they would just do that.
Yeah.
I
hope with what they're doing with the TV series, having somebody like Jon Favreau at the helm is a good start, though. Is having the right people in place that are really good storytellers and know how to take this material and turn it into something compelling. And the people at the top, let them do what they do best. As long as you've got the right people in place, you can trust them to do what they do best. I think, again, I hate to keep comparing, like Marvel to Star Wars, but obviously, Kevin Feige at the head of Marvel has been, he's at the top, obviously, he's got people working with him, but they've done a really good job about bringing in all these different directors and stuff for the movies and the TV series, and everyone's able to put their like own unique spin. Like obviously, like the Thor stuff that's directed by Taika Waititi has a very distinct flavor to it. Taika's got his way of doing things versus like the Russo brothers versus even Jon Favreau, when they were like, hey, we're gonna do Iron Man, and people are like, Iron Man, he's like a D-list superhero. Oh, it's gonna be directed by Jon Favreau, and people are gonna be like, wait, the guy who directed Elf,
right?
And what
you just said, that's actually why Go ahead. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that they've had in Star Wars a few, some really good people in place, like brain fart.
Ryan Johnson's gonna get a trilogy.
Yeah,
Patty
like Bryce
Jenkins was gonna
Dallas,
get it-
like
was gonna
Bryce
get a
Dallas
movie. Taika
Howard.
Waititi was gonna get a movie. The
Yeah.
Game of Thrones guys were gonna get a trilogy. I mean, I'm Colin Trevorrow. I'm losing count of how many people they've promised stuff to, and still we're
Yeah.
just letting Dave Favreau do it, which is where I was gonna say is like, because of what you said about how rich it becomes when it's more than one person, handing just the keys to Jean and say it's just you. I'm pretty
Mhm.
much no. I like what John and Dave have done, but I also
Yeah.
really liked what Tony Gilroy did for Andor. They tried something new there too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I just wish. Let's just try stuff. It's not all going to be great, and not everyone's going to like everything.
Yeah.
But no one asked me, so
Yeah.
I think they're just they're doing what they're doing one step at a time and kind of seeing how it does. Which I don't know if that's a smart way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, you've got Galaxy's Edge at the theme parks, and people can drink blue milk, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been to Galaxy's. I haven't been to. I haven't had a chance to see Batu in person yet. So.
Oh, okay.
So, I haven't been to the Avengers campus either. So. I desperately need to get out to Disneyland to go to the Avengers campus. I cannot believe it's been open for this long and I've not been out there yet. So I feel like
They
a
have
bad
Avengers
Marvel
campus
fan.
in Paris too. They've built 2 of them now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and a Marvel themed hotel. So if I had less sense when my husband was like, what do you want to do for your 40th birthday this year? Instead of being like going to Vegas, I'd be like, let's go to Paris. But it's like, no, they're hosting the Olympics this year. So it's like, we'll just.
Is that this year?
So this year, next year, something like that.
Oh
So
my
it's like
gosh,
they're
where does
prepping
time
for
go?
Olympics. So let's stay away for a little while. So and you guys, you've been to the parks. Your husband, he just ran in the marathon.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah, I ran the half marathon.
Yeah, the
So
half
that's-
marathon, the Crazy Man.
That's fun.
Yeah. I have friends that
that's
do
something
the
I've never
dopey, so
That's
anybody that
dopey.
does anybody that does anything beyond a 5K is I think a accomplishment.
I mean, you get to go through the parks. That seems okay. But yeah, the running part, I'm like, no, pass.
Yeah. Had he done that
A lot of-
before?
He tries to do it every year. The
really?
half
Yeah.
marathon. Yeah.
You just go for
So-
moral support.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because what's nice about that race, I guess, compared to the others, it goes through Magic Kingdom, and I guess some of the others don't. And it's a pretty decent time of year, early January. So he really likes it. So yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done any of the races in the parks. I did a 5K on Castaway Key once.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
on the private island when we did a Disney cruise once. So, which that was really warm. even in late October. It was late October and it was really, really warm. And I'd also had my gallbladder taken out 6 weeks before. So
Oh
yeah.
goodness. Was the cruise just to the islands and back to Florida?
No, it was a week long. So we went to like
Oh, nice.
Grand Cayman and all
Oh,
those. But yeah, one of
wonderful.
the stops was at Castaway Key, and they do I don't know if they still do, but this was pre-COVID, where they do a 5K on the island. So that's the closest I've been to an official Disney race. I would kind of like to do like the half, or unfortunately with COVID, that they had a whole lot of different themed races. It's a little harder for them at Disneyland, although they did some really cool themed races. Like they did Star Wars Light Side Dark Side. You could decide which side you wanted to run for and get which medal you wanted to get. But unfortunately with Disneyland, they don't have the square footage to necessarily do longer races. Otherwise they have to go out into Anaheim and start shutting down traffic. So yeah, the Walt Disney World races in Florida are definitely bigger if you want a bigger race, because they have obviously the square mileage.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, kudos to your husband for for doing that. So, because it looks like a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's like it looks like a lot of work.
I think the parts in the park look really fun. There are long stretches on highways that doesn't look fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, hey, but at least it got you guys out of New York for a little bit.
Yeah, it was nice.
The 5 bazillion inches of snow that northern New York got.
It's been pretty quiet this year, snow wise. We haven't really.
Yeah.
We've had cold. I think we got the same cold snap we were all talking about. This weekend, but not really the snow. It's been strange.
Yeah. Well, I know like Buffalo got hit.
Buffalo,
really.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy because of the lakes there. I mean, wait, someone you're by Great Lake. It could be unpredictable, and that one was so deadly because it was apparently like a snow hurricane. Really, really crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, again, that's all I really had. So,
well, this was so fun.
Unless you got more questions for us. So.
How can people find the podcast? I guess if you're listening to it, you don't need that question answered. I guess how can I find it later so I can share it? I guess we'll do that off camera. So please edit that out so I don't sound stupid.
No, you're fine. We'll have a link. I've got the links to your YouTube and your TikTok already ready to go.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so those will be available in the show notes for when if people want to find you. And of course, if any of our listeners, this is where we kind of do our plug anyway. So good transition there, Jen. Okay. They could go to thefiveishfangirls.com where they can find all the links to our various social media accounts, because we're all over the place. And of course, we have our About Us page, which has our personal ones if anyone wants to follow us individually. Of course, we have the link to the Goodreads book club update, which normally we would do a book club update because we're in a new month, but just go to the Facebook or the book club to check on the updates, and we'll fill you in next episode. And then, of course, if anyone wants to financially support us, we've got the Ko-fi, we've got Patreon, we've got merch on Redbubble, which I added a new design that I forgot to mention last week. So there's a new design in the shop. Thanks to a piece of feedback from one of our
long-time
lovely Fiveish fam members. So if you want to be gloriously unhinged, you can. And then of course, the podcast can be found pretty much wherever you find podcasts. And then don't forget, we also have our nonprofit Fangirls Give Back, which as we're getting ready to get into convention season, working on panels and that sort of thing. So if anyone's got any suggestions for maybe a panel topic you want to hear, what kind of events I attend and are normally at, if you think it would be appropriate, please hit us up. Or if you want to be part of the discussion or have an idea of how you can help us out, helping out fellow female geeky creators, please hit us up on email or any of the other social medias. I check them all. I'm all over the place. I'm surprised my fingerprints have not been like permanently rubbed off with the amount of time I hold my phone. Or my phone has just not become a giant fingerprint. One of the two. So Jen, this has been a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what kind of adventures Grogu and Trooper Mom get into in the future. Sorry about the Bills are going to be in Super Bowl.
Only 2 teams can make it, not this year. Well, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for having me. This was really fun. It's fun to
Yep.
talk with you, ladies. We should do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. That was-
Yes.
There's always stuff to talk about. We got
Yes.
We got Mandalorian. We got all the Marvel stuff. So we all need to get Scott Lang's book and have a book club discussion.
Ooh,
So,
yes.
yeah.
Be up for that. Yes.
So, yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and I guess for now we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Belvedere saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefiveishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.